We all know it. Walked it every day. But none of them were like these. The world's most dangerous ways to school. Freezing, climbing, risking their lives, all for the chance of a better future. Spectacular and sometimes simply beautiful. The world's most dangerous ways to school. Zamboanga del Norte, a peninsula in the southern Philippines. Children who want to get an education here have one of the most dangerous and most extraordinary ways to school. Their school is located in the heart of the mountains, deep in the rainforest. In circumstances like this, it's hard for many students to get an education. Some walk alone through the jungle for hours. Others risk their lives in order to make it past this, Pampang, a steep face of rock and boulders overgrown with moss and tree roots. A gigantic wall that the children must climb every single day in the hopes of a better future. When the sun rises on Mindanao at 5:30 a.m., it gets light quite suddenly. The day begins early this close to the equator. Zamboanga is located in the northwest of the second largest island in the Philippines. The thinly populated coastal strip gives way to sharply rising mountains. In the tiny fishing settlement of Madibago, the day begins with the break of dawn, and thus also begins one of the most dangerous ways to school in the world. When the rooster crows, Aida Proceso wakes her family. There's no time to lose. Her daughter, Ivy, has class in 2.5 hours. Before getting ready, she helps her mother make breakfast. Like every morning, there's rice, fish, and moringa. The Procesos can't afford anything else. Like 86% of the Filipino population, the family lives in poverty.
I go to high school in Oro.
National High School.
It's a long and very difficult journey every day.
Down here on the coast, there is no school for the 11-year-old. Every day, she has to walk uphill through the jungle. It's no coincidence that her school is located on the neighboring mountain, nor is it bad planning. In this region of the Philippines, families live far apart from one another, scattered across the mountain slopes, the coast, and the woods. The Oro Elementary and High School has a central location. More than 2,500 feet further up, Ivy's classmate Ryan gazes dreamily down on the fishing bay. The 12-year-old lives high up on the summit. For him, it's already high time he started off to school. But first, Ryan has to help his grandmother.
We're dependent on rain up here. If it doesn't rain,
We don't have any water to
Kuha lang
drink.
kami ng tubig sa ulan.
Then I have to come down here before school to get water from the fountain.
Pag iskolo ko,
Only then
nag-iigib muna ako
can we
ng
go to
tubig.
school.
It's over half a mile to the fountain and back. But more than the long distances, it's the isolation up here that makes life so hard for Ryan. He lives in a small cottage along with his grandmother, and all his friends from school live far away. Together they raise pigs. Every couple of months, Ryan's grandma sells one down in the markets in the villages. That's enough for them to survive on. But she wants Ryan to have a better life someday. School is the first step.
Si Ryan, ma'am.
Ryan isn't like other children. He's wonderful. He helps me with the housework and with other work. He always does what I tell him to do. But he only has a few friends to play with up here. He is playing on his own most of the time. He's a daydreamer.
Ako aragin ng trabaho.
Ryan's parents live in the capital, Manila, 500 miles away. Their dream, at least a little prosperity. The reality, Ryan's father doesn't have a good education and has to make his living as a motorbike taxi driver. He doesn't earn enough money to feed his son in the city. So ever since his 3rd birthday, Ryan has lived here. Every month, his father sends a support check, about $17 US. Even in the mountains of Mindanao, that's not much. It's just enough for a breakfast of rice and instant noodles. Ryan's grandmother packs the leftovers for his school lunch.
I go to school because my dream is to be an engineer. To earn enough money to fly to my parents.
To realize his dream, the boy has to walk more than 2 hours to school.
Every morning, when I see him go, it breaks my heart. Every day, he takes the path down to Oro without complaining. The jungle, the roads. A child shouldn't have to go to school like that. But what can I do? It's the only school and his only chance to become something decent.
To get to school, Ryan must descend for miles through nearly unspoiled nature. And the 12-year-old has to hurry. In fact, he's already late. Class starts in 2 hours. Six in the morning. Time is also getting short for the Proceso family in the fishing settlement of Madibago. Right after eating breakfast, Ivy has to go to school. Until a few months ago, her older brothers accompanied her. But since they graduated, they've been looking for work in the city.
Opo, gusto kong pumasok sa...
It was good when my brothers were still there.
Ayokong...
They could tell me where I should step or what I could hold on to. I felt safer. Now, I have to find my way by myself.
Hindi ko...
One last touch-up in the mirror before going. An 11-year-old girl should have other things on her mind than worrying about how she'll make her way to school today without getting hurt. Iby's mother used to be a teacher at her school. Ida climbed the path with her children together, but she's no longer physically capable of making it on her daughter's route.
Whenever I see Ivy go, I'm always reminded of the accident. I was with her. I was climbing a few feet underneath her. All of a sudden, she fell towards me. Luckily, I was able to hold on to her. I can't bear to think that she's alone on the wall now.
The closest larger town in which there's something like medical care is about 12 miles from Madibago. Dapitan City. Someone lives here who knows the way over the steep face better than almost anyone else. Frederick comes from Ivy's settlement. Today, he's the principal in Oro.
Noong kapanahonan ko po ng bata pa ko,
I know exactly how dangerous it is for the children. I went that way for years myself. And that's why I actually don't want the children coming to school over the crack. But I also know that some don't have any choice.
Na-experience ko talaga ang hirap doon sa...
Because of his own experience, Frederick, along with the school board, has even officially prohibited families from taking the route over the steep face. But he also knows, on the one hand, he can't tell anyone which path to take. And on the other hand, it sounds much easier than it actually is for the children. Shortly after he leaves the city on his motorbike, it becomes apparent why.
That's the street to Madibago. This is the only street to the school in Oro.
Dito nanggagaling ang mga kabataan namin.
You have to go along the coast first, and then it's twice that distance to get to the school. It's an uphill walk.
Makarating sila ng maaga, naghihintay sila ng sasakyan.
Most people can't afford a taxi.
Ng habal-habar o yung motorsiklo.
$1. That's how much a ride on a motorbike taxi to school costs. But Ivy's family simply doesn't have the money. And going around would mean walking for hours. So for decades, children from Madibago have been taking the shortcut through the jungle. And they have to make it over this, a steep face. The people here simply call it pang pang, which means something like short crossing. A crossing from the coast to the mountains, from water to rock. It rises all of a sudden like a huge wall. In some places, its slope is 90 degrees. The naked rock is overgrown with slippery moss and roots. Many people have fallen here. Some have critically injured themselves while trying to climb Pampang. That's why the children from Madibago prefer to go together.
I hope there are some older kids today. If not, I have to lead the younger ones.
In fact, other children are already waiting at the meeting place, so they can climb Pampang together. But it's only 8-year-old Shomari and his younger brother Chanel who will share the path with Ivy today. At the age of 11, Ivy is the oldest, and as such is responsible for the other children. School is compulsory in the Philippines too, but only through 6th grade. And many children simply don't go to school. 1 in 10 is illiterate. Meanwhile, Ryan has reached Cobra Rock, which is inhabited by highly poisonous, but thankfully, timid snakes. Ryan is not afraid of them. He likes to play in the high grass too much. And he has encountered snakes more than once while doing so.
Once, I was running up the hill in the afternoon. I wasn't looking down. All of a sudden, I heard tack, tack, and my leg hurt. A snake in the grass lunged at me and bit me here in the calf.
Luckily for Ryan, it was only a sawe, a non-poisonous variety of snake, not the Filipino spitting cobra, which lives here in the mountains and can kill with one bite. "6:30. School starts in 1.5 hours. Ryan still hasn't covered even 1/4 of the way yet. The 3 children at the foot of the mountain have also made little progress. They're approaching the most difficult part of their daily route.
I always get a bit nervous when we get close to Pam Pam. It scares me.
Jean-Marie and his brother Janelle are in 2nd grade. Their trail, which children in flip-flops have trodden down over decades through the jungle, is getting increasingly steep. Even this early in the morning, the temperature on their way to school is already over 85 degrees Fahrenheit. In addition, there's also the high humidity of the jungle. And they haven't even gotten to the hardest part yet. Meanwhile, up on the mountain, Ryan has reached the coconut fields. Sometimes he encounters the coconut farmers here, cutting new notches in the palm trees with their machetes. They use these notches as steps to climb up the trees and harvest the coconuts by hand. Along with rice and mangoes, coconuts are the most important crop in the region. But the yields from the mountain fields aren't big enough to play a role in the large-scale export business. It's too difficult to transport the coconuts down to the cities. Most are sold at markets in the mountain villages. It's almost 7 o'clock already. School begins in 1 hour, but the heat is getting to Ryan. Sometimes, when the farmers let him, the 12-year-old takes a short break and catches a breeze. Coconut trees reach a height of 65 to 100 feet. One mistake, and Ryan would fall straight down. But the mountain children learn the special climbing technique at a young age, and the notch steps provide good support. Although time is getting short, Ryan isn't thinking of getting right back to the trail at school. He's even better at doing handicrafts and inventing things than he is at climbing trees. As long as he's already up here, the daydreamer is happy to take a breather. He dreams of working as an engineer and of someday visiting his parents in Manila. But he also knows that the key to realizing his dreams isn't up in the crown of a palm tree, but a couple miles further down the mountain. Ivy Chaumarie and Chanel have reached the steepest part. Every time she gets here, Ivy thinks about the day her mother saved her life in the nick of time.
It rained that day. Right up there. That's where I slipped.
She would have been dashed against the rocks if Ida hadn't caught her. But Ivy's mother isn't there today. The 11-year-old is on her own and has to lead the younger children. Right as the children are about to get started, someone comes from the other direction. The iron rule on Pampang, the person climbing down has right of way. At some parts, the rock ledges and roots are so narrow that only one person at a time can climb on them. It's one of the fishermen who climb down every day from their homes in the mountains to feed their families. For them, Pampang is more than a shortcut. It is the most important connection between life on the mountain and life on the coast.
Hold on tight, kids. It's very slippery today.
A quick, well-intentioned piece of advice. And then the children are all alone again. Their way up the steep face is now free. Ivy's father is also a fisherman. While she's up here climbing, he's making the family's living on the Sulu Sea, a marginal sea of the Pacific Ocean. The Sulu Sea is quite shallow along the coast. The fishermen can walk hundreds of yards out to their boats. But a little later, the ocean floor drops off sharply to a depth of up to 4.5 miles. Ben Proceso never got an education, but he knows his children's way to school very well.
She should be up there right about now. I always look up when I paddle out to go fishing. I wonder if it's right to send my daughter on a path like that. But what can I do? After all, she has to go to school.
Traditionally, the fishermen cast nets into the bay to catch fish. There were times when enough fish swam into his net, when Ben could actually afford a motorbike taxi for his children. But this luxury has become rarer and rarer. The catches are getting worse and worse.
Three fish? That's actually pretty good for one morning. Sometimes I even get 5. I don't want my children to become fishermen. Well, if that's what they want, then okay. But they ought to learn something useful. That's why they have to go to school.
Once again, the catch is just large enough to feed his own family. Ben hasn't sold fish for a long time now, and that's why he simply doesn't have the money to spare his daughter the dangerous journey to school. Frederick, the teacher, is proof that education can function as a path out of poverty. He too came from a fisherman's family in Maribago, and he took the way to school over Pampang every day. Oro has one primary and one secondary school, with a total of 340 students. Frederick teaches 1st through 4th grade, plus kindergarten. 5th through 10th grades, which Ivy and Ryan attend, are in a separate building right next door.
I think I'm kind of a role model for the children. I'm an example for them that they shouldn't give up, that the path is worth taking no matter how difficult it is. That, in a metaphorical sense, the path is also a path to one's goals in life.
Ryan's break in the palm tree lasted a bit longer than he planned. It's 7:15. At 8 o'clock, That is, in 45 minutes, class starts. If Ryan doesn't hurry up now, he'll get there too late. But instead of getting a move on, he enjoys a coconut that he has just scavenged. Again and again, along the lonely path over the mountain ridge, the 12-year-old gets lost in his own thoughts.
I think of my parents a lot up here. I don't know when I saw them last. It's been a couple of years now. I missed them a lot. I wish they were here.
Several hundred feet below, Ivy, Chou-Marie, and the 7-year-old Chanel have other problems to deal with. The 3 children have reached the steepest part of Pampang. This is where most accidents happen. The wall changes constantly according to the weather conditions. Each day the children need to read it afresh and find new paths up it. The only thing they have to hold on to are the roots that grow out of the wet soil and wrap themselves around the rocks. Some are sturdy, some are not.
I'm really afraid of this part. I've slipped here a couple of times.
The children climb slowly, following the 3-point rule. That means they should seek a new support with only one arm or leg at a time, a necessity if they want to survive on their way to school. Another rule, the oldest goes last. Thus, Ivy keeps her eye on the others, can guide them from below, and in an emergency, can perhaps still react and catch them. While her daughter continues to climb up Pampang, Ivy's mother walks a few hundred yards along the road to her new job. To save the very youngest children from having to make the climb, the government has at least opened a kindergarten on the coast, and Ida is the teacher. In return for working there 6 days a week, Ivy's mother gets about $23 a month. The children in the kindergarten always remind her of her own daughter.
When Ivy was that age, she was a very shy girl. That didn't change until she suddenly had to climb Pampang alone. Since then, I barely recognize my child. She's suddenly an adult.
And she pays a high price for it, just like those children who now go to kindergarten soon will. As long as there is no school on the thin strip of coast, they will also have to take the dangerous path. There is no longer any trace of Ivy's earlier timidity. Courageous and confident, she leads the 7- and 8-year-old up the crag. Their strength is fading. Climbing takes it out of them, especially the 2 boys. It's important for them to maintain their concentration, as it's especially slippery today. Done. Exhausted, the children struggle the last few feet up the crag. Their arduous ascent has taken them more than a half hour. For the moment, Ivy is relieved. The 11-year-old has led the boys to safety.
Pam was extremely difficult today.
But their journey isn't over yet. No time to rest. School starts in 40 minutes. And from this point, the children still need at least that much, if they hurry. Up on the plateau, several children from the surrounding villages have already reached the school in Oro. And they're supposed to be there early. Every morning before school starts, all the students and the teachers clean the grounds. The children from Madibago and the remote mountain settlements rarely participate. Frederick, the principal, doesn't have the heart to punish them or to be mad at them.
Those children who live far away almost always come too late. All we can do is offer to spend time in the afternoon reviewing the material they've missed.
From the other side of the ridge, Ryan finally reaches a building he knows only too well. It's the Daro Elementary School, the village school he used to attend. It also has a kindergarten. There are only 3 rooms and 3 teachers. First and second grade share one room and one teacher, as do third and fourth grade.
I went here from kindergarten to 4th grade.
Daycare hanggang grade 4. Tapos
That's all the further it goes.
Malapit lang itong school.
There's no secondary school here. That's why Ryan now has to go all the way to Oro. At least from here on, he walks along the road. Many of his former classmates don't go to school anymore. The way is simply too long for them. Almost 8 o'clock. After the climb, Ivy and the 2 boys are hurrying through the undergrowth of the mangrove forest. The 11-year-old is determined not to arrive too late. They reach the school grounds just in time. Many children from the surrounding area are already there. The children from Madibago are happy each time they manage to beat the bell. Like today. School begins at 8 o'clock sharp with a traditional flag ceremony. Frederick, the teacher, takes attendance for each class. A handful of students are just about always missing at this time of day. Nevertheless, school begins as planned with the national anthem. As usual, Ryan misses it. The 12-year-old has been walking for over 2 hours all alone. Sometimes someone on a motorbike is nice enough to let him ride along for a bit, and that saves him a lot of time, but not today. No one with a free space has driven by.
I know, I'm definitely too late. I always try to be on time, but even when I hurry, class has usually already begun when I get there.
He gets to school at 8:45. Ryan has missed the first class, not for the first time this week. And he's not the only one to miss it today. In second grade, the lesson is well underway, and 8-year-old Jean-Marie and his 7-year-old brother are there today. The children's classes are math, English, social studies, and science, Filipino, and local dialects. But not all the children seem to be paying attention. The exhausting climb up Pampang has taken its toll.
You can recognize children from Maribago like Jean-Marie and Janelle immediately. Their inability to concentrate makes them stand out. They're tired. I have to give them special attention to make sure they participate.
There's a long break at 11:30. The school doesn't have a real cafeteria, but a few mothers from the surrounding villages sell food in the pavilion. There's a kind of donut, polenta, eggs, and chicken, all for 1 to 5 pesos. That's about 5 to 25 cents. At that price, even the poorer children can sometimes buy something to accompany the rice they've brought with them. Ryan and Ivy are in 7th grade. In the afternoon, they have history class.
Bakit nagiging ang kasunduan sa pagitan ng Italy at saka Germany ay nagiging Rome, Berlin? Bakit? Or why? Because Italy, Rome is capital of Italy.
They've been learning about the Second World War. At home, Ivy prepared a report about Spain's participation in the war. The Philippines were a Spanish colony for centuries. Even today, the influence of that time can be seen in the country's food, culture, and language.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Ito po ang gawaing pangkat-isa. Mga sanhi ng ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig. Ang mga pangyayaring naganap at nagpasiklab ng ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig ay ang sumusunod.
As always, Ivy's report is a success. The 11-year-old is a model student.
Ivy is an exception. The kids with a long walk to school do worse in class than the others. Take Ryan. I know he walks down from the mountain every day. He's very intelligent, but he can't concentrate and almost always misses the first class.
First period. Kaya yun.
School ends at 3:30. The pavilion has transformed from an improvised cafeteria into a taxi stand. Many motorbike drivers from the region, some of them the same age as the students, are waiting in the hopes of earning a little extra money. Chaumarie and Chanel are in luck. Another student from the coast has enough money for a motorbike taxi and takes them with her. Today, the two boys don't have to climb back down Pampang. Ryan has also found a ride. A farmer going his way can take him along for part of the journey. A rare stroke of luck. Most of the other children stay at school. The grounds are open to everyone in the afternoon. Teenagers who live far apart from one another use the opportunity to play basketball together, the national sport of the Philippines, or just to spend time with their friends. Like Ivy.
Maging pulis po mo.
My friends are here.
Para mahuli
This is my only chance to be with them.
mga magdodroga.
Getting a ride from the farmer saves Ryan a whole lot of time. Over 1 hour on foot.
Opo, dahil para pag abot
I want to get home fast.
makapaglaro ako.
For a change, the 12-year-old does not dawdle on the way home. As happens so often, a storm is drawing near. The weather can change suddenly in the Philippines. Thanks to the high humidity, short, heavy rain showers tend to be the rule, even in the dry season. This is no problem for most of the children. The clouds often disperse as quickly as they've gathered. But for Ivy, it means even greater danger on her way home from school. The roots, the rocks, the soil. Pampang is now even more slippery than usual.
I hate it when it has rained.
Madulas po ako.
In addition, climbing down is more difficult than climbing up. Ivy's mother, Aida, dislikes the rain as much as her daughter. Her concern grows with each passing minute. Her fear that Ivy might slip a second time. Last time, Aida managed to save her in the nick of time. A couple bruises, a couple scrapes. Luckily, that was the extent of the damage. Ivy was 8 years old then.
Malakas ang ulan, Ma'am. Bumabaha.
I always look for something to do when the weather is like this, to distract myself. Otherwise, all I do is think of Ivy and how she's hanging on to the roots. I can't stand it.
Sinusundo ko sila pag malakas na ang ulan.
At that very moment, Ivy has reached the steepest part of Pampang, and the rain is getting stronger. There's no one around to help her in an emergency. The way home lasts longer than usual. Normally, Ivy would be home by now. At a certain point, no shirt in need of mending could distract Ida anymore. She must keep a lookout for her daughter. What Ida would really like to do is embrace her daughter. But she doesn't want Ivy to notice how concerned she is. Ultimately, tomorrow is another school day, and so no exceptions can be made today. Ivy has to do her homework.
I want to be a police officer and put criminals in jail.
The school day comes to a close on top of the mountain too. Like every evening, Ryan does his homework while eating dinner. He's pretty tired, but that doesn't keep the 12-year-old from chasing his dreams.
My biggest wish is to have enough money someday to go to Manila. I'd like to visit my parents so much. It's really my biggest wish.
Even before the sun has completely disappeared behind the horizon, 11-year-old Ivy goes to bed, exhausted. Ryan also goes to bed early, like always. The children from Zamboanga del Norte. They've got to get started again at the break of dawn, starting along one of the world's most dangerous ways to school. For the De Ojos family, the day starts at 4:30 in the morning. While daughter Candice is still sleeping, Father Salvador and Mother Yasiris prepare breakfast. Like most people in this region, they live with very meager means. In this small wooden hut, they have just enough money for food. All the more reason why the 28-year-old mother wants to give her children the chance to have a better life. With the sunrise at 6 o'clock, Yasiris wakes her daughter, Candice. Like almost every morning, the 10-year-old doesn't have much time. Lessons will begin in just 2 hours. Kindy School is far away, and getting there is a major undertaking. There is no running water. The people who live here use collected rain and river water for cooking, laundry, and washing themselves. Kendi's 11-year-old sister goes to the high school in the next bigger village of Kuturu, 20 kilometers away. The parents taught their two daughters what school is at an early age.
I like to go to school. I learn a lot there.
Her teacher promotes the talents of the individual students. For Candice, it's painting.
This is from a movie we watched. The man had to collect the stones, and when someone touches the stones, they turn to gold.
About 50 families live in the community of La Vereda La Escuela. To get from A to B, the residents mainly use motorcycles or boats, or they have to walk, like Candice and the other school children.
The roads are very bad. It's super slippery. When it rains hard, we don't even go to school.
The distance and the path across a dangerous bridge are enough of a challenge for the children, in addition to the heat and high humidity, which make walking difficult. Just past 6:30 in the morning, Kendi sets off. Her mother joins her on the first leg of the journey to school. Temperatures are already around 32 degrees Celsius. But this is the least of Kendi's problems. What she's thinking about now is the bridge she has to cross. Living just a half hour away from her by boat, the school day starts differently for Kendi's classmate. 10-year-old Juan Carlos lives on his grandparents' farm.
I like horseback riding best, but I also like to drive the cows in. Those ones over there. I know all of them by name. When I call them, they come.
Like almost every morning, Juan has to bring the cows in from the pasture. It is not uncommon here for children to grow up with relatives. Juan's mother doesn't make enough money to raise two kids, so she decided to keep her younger son with her and send Juan to his grandparents. While Juan drives the last cows in, his grandfather, Jorge, begins with the milking. As a result of selling milk and cheese, he is among the better earners in the region. From his perspective, the fact that his grandson has to help does have its advantages.
He's learning how to care for the cows. For example, how to give them medication and help with birthing.
After half an hour, Juan returns with the cows. He still has 1.5 hours before class starts, exactly the time he needs to get to school. He's usually the last to arrive.
Sometimes I have to let the ducks out and feed the chicks. Then I shower and go.
Even if Juan is late and has to hurry, breakfast is important. The physical work makes Juan hungry, and there's still a tough road ahead. To make sure he has enough strength, he eats rice, eggs, cheese, and avena, an oat drink. Juan doesn't have to cross the rickety bridge like Candice does, but he faces his own challenges.
I have to go in a canoe, and it can tip over very easily. And then there's a spot where I'm up to my chest in the water.
That's why Juan puts his school uniform in his backpack and changes into it later. Grandmother Ana Maria always finds it difficult to see her grandson off.
Chao. Mírame, chao. Me da mucha tristeza.
I'm very sad when I see him go away.
Hacia allá.
And rightly so. There are many dangers lurking along the 1.5-hour walk to school. River currents, swamps, poisonous animals, and the rising heat. Candice and her mother Yasiris are only a few meters away from the bridge. Class starts in just an hour. After strong rains, they have to leave even earlier in the morning, because then the road is especially slippery and muddy.
The bridge is the most dangerous part of the way to school. Anything could happen at any time, both on the way there and back. It's the hardest part.
Without the bridge, it would take Candice yet another hour to get to school. The children are never allowed to cross the decaying wooden construction alone. If anything should happen, someone else needs to be able to get help. This is why the 10-year-old meets her classmates, Andrea, Nivea, and Neidi at the bridge. Yes, this bridge. 180 meters long, 4 meters high. The footbridge is made of thin, rotting tree trunks that are only loosely connected. One false step, and they're certain to fall into the smelly water. The children could seriously injure themselves, or even drown.
I'm afraid I'm going to fall down and break my foot or my hand. It's always dangerous to cross the bridge.
From the very first step, the children have to keep their concentration. With every day and each downpour, the bridge becomes more unstable.
I'm afraid the children might fall, and if the wood breaks, they could drown or break their legs. I'm tortured with worry the whole day.
The nearest hospital is 2 hours away, and treatment would be expensive. The children have only one thought: to cross the wooden bridge safely. The wooden bridge their parents built for them to shorten their way to school. Kendi's father, Salvador, helped to build the bridge. Like 90% of the villagers, he has no permanent work. He does odd jobs like working in the fields or fishing, with which he earns the equivalent of just 280 euros a month. 2 years ago, it wasn't possible to move so freely. The guerrilla movement FARC had the area firmly in its grip. It fought against the government and its supporters. The population still suffers from the consequences, but is trying to get their lives back.
Tocaría de uno coger por ahí.
To really make a living, I'd need at least 10 fish like this a day.
Por ejemplo, un salario más o menos para sostenerse uno.
That doesn't happen very often. Fishing alone is not enough to pay for my daughter's education. It's just enough to feed us every day.
Simplemente nos daría para el sustento diario, para la alimentación de cada día.
Although the state schools are free of charge, the families still have to pay for books, school uniforms, and travel expenses. Salvador wants his daughters to have a better life. That's why he and his wife put every cent into their children and into their dreams. Juan has to hurry. He left the house way too late today.
Now I have to cross the river in a canoe. I'm always afraid it'll tip over.
The canoe is extremely wobbly. One wrong move, and Juan would be sitting in the water, together with his school uniform and books. Juan learned to canoe 2 years ago from a man working for his grandfather. Besides the horses, the canoe is Juan's grandparents' only means of transportation. If they need a dugout canoe during the day, the boy has to swim home in the afternoon with his school supplies in his backpack, which is why a lot of his things have broken. Juan will have to walk for half an hour. As close as it is to the equator, the climate is almost constant throughout the year, hot and muggy. Due to the high humidity, it often rains at night. The ground becomes very soft, which means Juan has to work that much harder.
Now I have to put my backpack on my head. Sometimes the water goes all the way up to here.
The mud causes a lot of trouble for him. Juan can't see where he's stepping in the murky water. It's only 50 meters to the shore, but those 50 meters are what he's most afraid of. Meanwhile, Candice and her friends continue to confront their own fears. They still have a good 70 meters ahead of them. 70 meters along which anything could happen at any time.
Friends of mine have already fallen down and hurt themselves.
Especially in the places where there's no railing, Kendi's heart pumps that much faster. It's even more unstable here. One basic rule is never step on the same trunk as someone else. If a trunk breaks and one child falls in the water, at least the other will be able to go for help. While the children are still fighting to get over the bridge, their teacher arrives at school. Yuri's journey with a motorcycle taxi begins Mondays at midnight. Over the weekend, she always travels to her hometown of Medellin, 7 hours away. About 2 years ago, the government rebuilt the school. During the week, it's Yuri's home. It's a small chamber with no windows and no daylight, but Yuri tries to make the best of it.
It's my calling to be a teacher. If you don't feel called, you can't deal with it. There are tons of mosquitoes in my room. In the beginning, there was nothing. I had to bring everything from Medellin. It was really hard for me. There was no TV, no mattress, no blanket. It's difficult every time.
2 years ago, Yuri got one of the few permanent jobs available for teachers. It was a big shock when she learned where she was placed. Now, she has made it her goal to spread knowledge in remote places like this.
It's a big challenge. I'm afraid for my students. I don't feel calm because there's always something that could happen. They could drown or hurt themselves. The bridge is really difficult for the children.
Yuri now has a good half an hour of worrying until the first children begin to arrive. Candice and her friends will soon have made it, if all goes well. The closer they get to the shore, the faster they go, and even forget the most important rule, to keep their distance from each other. They can't get over the bridge fast enough. Ten-year-old Neidi has an especially difficult struggle. She suffers from a fear of heights. With every step, the feeling of dizziness rises, forcing her to her knees. Neidi's friends cannot wait for her together at one place. The danger of collapse is too great. After about half an hour, the first ones finally make it. They have solid ground under their feet once again. The children's exhaustion and relief is noticeable. It's not just the intense concentration, but also the heat and humidity that are tiring. 30 minutes in the blazing sun over a wobbly wooden bridge. It's become a part of everyday life, but it is something they will never get used to.
I'm relieved because nothing happened and nobody got hurt.
Class starts in just a half hour. There is still a long walk ahead, but the most difficult part is now behind them. For Juan, the most dangerous part is yet to come.
I'm afraid of the stingrays. If they sting you, you can die. I have to be careful. They bury themselves in the mud.
A stingray sting can be fatal or cause serious injury, but this is the only way to get to school. Mission accomplished. Without meeting a stingray, without getting the backpack and school supplies wet.
I am relieved because I have the mud and the water behind me now.
Finally, Juan can put on his dry school uniform. Class starts in 20 minutes. Although he already knows he's going to be late again, he's glad that he can go to school at all. It brings him a little closer to his dream of moving to a big city. Kendis, Nevea, Andrea, and Neidi have been on the road for over an hour now. Unlike Juan, at least they're not alone, which makes time go by faster. The temperature is already 34 degrees Celsius at 7:45 in the morning, with humidity at 97%.
It's really super hot while walking.
We have to protect ourselves from the sun.
If we get too hot.
And when we go home in the afternoon, it's even hotter.
Even while they are walking to school, they are already thinking about the way back. Even hotter, and over the wooden bridge again. If the children are lucky, an adult will pick them up on a motorcycle after school. But they won't know until school's out at 1 o'clock. The last 15 minutes are the hardest. The temptation to just sit in the shade is great.
Okay, let's go.
They know the reason they're making such a great effort. To learn things that will help make their dreams of a good job come true. Juan will soon arrive as well. He gets up his strength for the last stretch.
The most difficult part is the hill we just passed and the one coming up.
To pass the time, Juan practices doing calculations in his head. Math is his favorite subject. After 1.5 hours, Candice and her friends have finally made it. Just before 8 o'clock, the blue roof of the school appears behind the last hill. This sight alone gives them a shot of energy. The classmates who live a little closer are already there. A total of 15 children between the ages of 6 and 10 go to the school. Education is compulsory in Colombia for 9 years, but only 85% of children actually go to school. Juan finally arrives shortly after 8. Even though he has to take an arduous road, he likes school. For him, it's a welcome change from the hard life on the farm.
Mis amores, nos paramos para hacer la oración, ¿cierto? Yo les he enseñado, Señor Jesús, te damos gracias, por este día de vida que nos das. Te damos gracias por nuestras familias, en el nombre de Jesús. Amén.
Today, the subject of means of communication is part of the curriculum.
Computers.
In addition to general knowledge, the children are taught math, Spanish, art, religion, and sports. The school only gets textbooks through donations. Teacher Yuri buys most of the classroom materials using her meager salary of 350 euros a month. The teacher faces the same challenge every day, teaching 6 different levels, from preschool to 5th grade, all at the same time.
It's very difficult to teach like this. Why? Because I look for a topic that is good for everyone. Then I assign a task that everyone can do, and then another one that is appropriate to the level. This means the tasks have different degrees of difficulty.
2 years ago, most of the children wrote very poorly and came to school irregularly. Yuri is proud that that has changed. Her students really like to go to school now. But there's still one problem. The children arrive exhausted.
They are often tired and have trouble concentrating. But I try to teach things that are fun for the children and where they have to actively participate. I know the circumstances. They don't have it easy, but I always tell them that the effort and learning will pay off in the future.
After 3 hours, the children have a 45-minute break. They can rest and get something to eat. Sometimes the parents bring something to their kids during the lunch break, but most of them get a break box.
Before I get here, I eat breakfast. And my grandma always gives me something to eat because there's no cafeteria here.
After lunch, there's still time to play. Something Juan doesn't get to do much at home. Here, he can finally be a child. And the fun continues in gym class. The kids love it. They can stop thinking and just goof around. Shortly before 1 o'clock, the end of the lesson approaches, and thus, also the trip back home.
I'm always a little afraid of going back because it's so hot there. And if you go into the water when you're that heated, you can get a shock and drown.
Candice hopes that her father, Salvador, has time to pick her up with a motorcycle today. It's also not particularly safe, but at least it's better than the wooden bridge. The teacher lets her young charges go, but with mixed feelings. She knows that today she has brought them one step closer to their dreams, but she also knows the trials and tribulations that lie ahead. Candice and her friend Andrea are lucky. Salvador is already waiting. He can't always pick them up. It depends on whether he or his wife need the motorcycle for something else. It's their only means of transport. The two girls are happy when someone picks them up, although the ride on the motorcycle is also not without its risks.
When it rains, I'd rather walk. When it's so wet, it's easy to slip and get badly hurt.
Yes, the muddy roads are the most difficult. You have to be very careful when driving here. You have to make sure not to slip in the mud. There are also a lot of buffalo here that destroy the ground. It's also very difficult for the kids, and you really have to watch out.
In the morning, it is often too wet and muddy to drive the children safely. By the afternoon, the sun has dried the ground, at least a little bit. Although the people here are very good drivers, there are accidents every day on the bad roads. They slide, fall, and can seriously hurt themselves. The good thing is that it only takes 30 minutes to get back by motorbike. Juan has just completed a quarter of the way. The midday heat is getting to him. 38 degrees Celsius, no wind, and the water supply is limited. Only the trees provide a bit of shade. Juan's grandparents are waiting for him and get worried if he comes home too late. But they also know he takes a break on the way home and therefore takes a little longer.
I like the car in the tree. It's nice and shady here, and cooler, especially in the afternoon, when the sun is even hotter after school. I take a break here. Sometimes I use the leaves as a sunblock. They give me a little shade.
After the short break, Juan goes step by step toward the section of the route he is most afraid of. It's almost 2 in the afternoon. The 10-year-old has been on his feet for 9 hours, and now he has to go back through the water with those dangerous creatures. But there's one thing on his way home he is looking forward to: his favorite place on the river. While Juan still has an hour's walk ahead of him, the others approach their destination after a half-hour ride. Mother Yasiris is relieved to have her youngest back again, and all in one piece.
I'm glad to be home. Now I'll relax and then do my homework.
She enjoys watching TV after school with her 11-year-old sister, Karen. After that, homework calls. Mother Yasiris helps her daughters. She recently returned to school and graduated herself. She has no vocational training. For that, she would have to move to another city and leave her family. But she doesn't want that.
Mona Lisa es una obra pictórica del pintor renacentista italiano Leonardo da Vinci.
So it's all the more important to her that her 2 girls are able to make their dreams come true. Meanwhile, Juan has arrived at the river. He still has to cross it, but then he is home. Although he's late, there's one thing he's not going to miss today. Juan loves to swim in a river without dangerous animals.
The water's so nice and cool, and I can relax a little bit. I can swim fast.
One canoe trip later, and he is finally at home. Exhausted after a very long day. His grandparents and his work are already waiting for him.
I feel very relieved when he comes home, and nothing has happened. I'm also proud of him when he brings home good marks.
I'm glad to be here and not have to go through the mud and the water anymore. I'm really relieved.
In the late afternoon, Candice gets together again with her friends. Before they go to bed, the family spends some time together.
I'm very happy when they get home, because every trip to school and back is dangerous.
Even though Candice is afraid of going to school every day, she knows it's the only chance she has to achieve her career aspirations.
I want to be a great artist. I love to paint. I love painting landscapes.
For this, she goes up against the shaky, rotting wooden bridge every day. She's sure that this is how her dreams will become reality. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Juan is finished with all his tasks. Even though his grandparents are very strict, they do give him support.
I hope that Juan will become an engineer, like my sons. He shouldn't end up as a field worker or a fisherman. I always tell him he has to study.
I want to go to Medellin and study there. I want to be an engineer.
In order to get closer to their wishes and dreams, Juan and the other children from the village La Veridad La Escuela have to go to school for the next few years on one of the world's most dangerous ways to school. High up on the summit of the mountain range is where the Quispe family lives, isolated and in the heart of the jungle. It's 5 a.m. Up on the mountain, the school day begins especially early. 9-year-old Helen and 7-year-old Mariela have a long walk ahead of them, 2.5 hours. Of all the children who attend the school, the sisters live furthest away. The girls live in extreme poverty, as does 60% of Bolivia's rural population. But the hardest thing for them is their solitary life on the mountaintop. All their friends live down in the valley, and the long journey to school is exhausting and dangerous. Helen and Mariela dream of what it would be like to leave the mountain and their poverty behind.
I want to become a doctor.
Para curar los dientes.
To give people good teeth.
Vacunar.
Make them healthy.
Voy a cosechar.
I want my own farm.
Yo compro mis buzos.
And new things.
Yo compro
I'd buy sweaters and pants and socks.
The
sisters are growing up without their father. He left them for a new family. Their mother, Lorenza, works various jobs as a day laborer. It's the only way she can feed her children. Lorenza herself only went to primary school, but she wants her girls to study as much and as long as possible. Education is their only way out of poverty.
I work all day and have hardly any time for the girls. It's terrible, but I can't do anything about it. I hope they have a good life, that they live in a nice house, find good husbands, and have happy families.
The girls know that a good education is their best chance for a life far removed from misery. And that it can open the door to a better future. It's 6 o'clock. School starts in 2.5 hours. Helen and Mariela have a long day ahead of them. The sisters call the first stage of their journey the Snake Hill. They've often seen the naka-naka, a species of coral snake in the high grass. The snakes are hard to spot, as most of them are only 7 to 12 inches long, and their venom makes them even more dangerous. It causes paralysis and can even lead to death.
We're afraid of the snakes here. We hit the grass with sticks to chase them away.
Helen and Mariela try to cross over the Snake Hill as quickly as possible. They know that if they were to get bitten up here on the mountain, help would arrive for them too late. Meanwhile, on the other side of the valley, the Rivero family are coca farmers, like so many people in the Yungas. This is the only region in Bolivia where it's legal to grow the plant. Seven-year-old Elmer and his 4-year-old brother, Porfirio, get to sleep in until 6:30.
Boys, it's time to get up.
Every morning, Elmer has to cross the gorge.
I wish I lived somewhere else, where you don't have to use a dangerous cable to go to school.
A finger-width steel cable leads from his house across the valley, a kind of homemade zip line. It's about 650 feet above the ground and already 30 years old. It's the only way to school. It takes a whole day to walk to the next bridge. Before going to school, Elmer has to help with the coca harvest. The moist, warm climate of the Yungas is also ideal for coffee and citrus fruit. But with coca, Elmer's family can make much more money. $280 a month, 5 times as much as Helen and Mariela's family.
What should I do?
Help me with the weeding.
According to Elmer's father, coca from the Yungas is not used to make cocaine. There is a tradition with coca leaves in Bolivia dating back centuries. People chew on them and make tea or medicine from them.
I don't want to become a coca farmer. It's a lot of work. I'd rather be an engineer and build houses. And I'd like to build a bridge here.
In a half hour, Elmer has to get going over the gorge. The sisters Helen and Mariela can breathe easy. They've made it over the Snake Hill. Now they're entering the thick forest. The girls have grown up in the jungle. They know its dangers, but also its tiny treasures. After walking for 3/4 of an hour, the sisters need a snack. They like the food at school best. There's often fruit and yogurt. But when they're really hungry, they eat what the forest provides. Sugarcane contains a sweet and sour fluid, albeit only one small sip for the long march.
Our dad taught us this. It's a plant you can chew.
It tastes like sugar when you chew it.
It's almost 7. The girls need to hurry up. They still have more than half the way to go. Meanwhile, Elmer and his little brother are starting off on their dangerous way to school.
Boys, don't forget your backpacks. Don't dawdle. And be careful.
It's a very special day for Elmer. Today, the 7-year-old will learn to fly. For the first time in his life, he will cross the gorge alone. A stone in the earth. That's all that's holding the homemade zip line in place. Four thin wires, about 1,000 feet across the valley. After 30 years, they're rather worn out, rusted, and sagging.
The police scare me the most. Sometimes I imagine them falling apart.
Once, Elmer broke his finger on the journey across the gorge.
It was really windy. I panicked and touched the cable. The wheel went over my finger.
Normally, Elmer goes across the gorge on his father's lap. Today, for the very first time, he'll hang from the steel cable, all alone.
Muy pesante. I'm old enough. And too heavy for my dad. I'll make it.
Elmer, I'll tie this tight. The rope needs to go up here, around your back. And the other one is for your feet, like a harness. Hold the knot here, and the bag here is like a seat. Make a knot like this.
Elmer's entire weight is now resting on the worn plastic bag. He could fall out at any moment. Several people from the region have already fallen to their death that way.
Don't touch the cable.
First, a test run. Elmer's father wants to see if his son will panic. Suddenly, a storm draws near. The sagging cable starts blowing in the wind.
When the wind is too strong, the pulley moves slower. You don't get enough speed to make it to the other side. With that much headwind, he could end up hanging in the middle. We have to be really careful with a storm like this. Lightning could strike the cable. Anyone on the zip line would get electrocuted.
Elmer's ride gets riskier every minute. Meanwhile, in La Paz, at 11,800 feet above sea level, it's the highest capital city in the world. This is where another long, formidable way to school starts, the teacher's journey. Every week, 63-year-old Angela commutes between two worlds, her home in the big city and her school in the jungle.
I do it all for the children. I want to help them learn.
Angela sets off with only the bare necessities in her bag. One of the most dangerous routes in the entire country lies ahead of her. Her first destination, the bus station in La Paz.
Good morning.
Angela's colleague, Luis, goes with her. Together, they run the school and teach the children.
Let's find a taxi.
How much?
70 bolivianos.
Maybe a bit less. No. Well, okay.
About $10 for a drive on one of the most dangerous routes in the world. That's a lot of money in Bolivia. The government covers the cost for the two teachers. On the way, they'll descend almost 10,000 feet from the highlands of the Andes to the edge of the Amazon basin. Angela, Luis, and the driver Carlos must cross the Andes. The route, unpredictable. Along crumbling rock faces and steep slopes. At 63, Angela actually could have retired long ago. But one thought drives her to take this risky route every week. She knows she can help the students make their way out of the jungle. The biggest danger lurks in the sky. A thick wall of fog descends on the mountains. Carlos, the driver, is tense. He's seen a lot of accidents on this road.
It's really dangerous with this much fog. You never know what's coming. There are often landslides and rocks fall on the street.
The most dangerous part of the route is yet to come. Many people have lost their lives here. Back to Helen and Mariela. They're relieved. Finally, they're going downhill for a short, safe stretch. In the afternoon, the sisters will have to hike back up the path they're running down now. When they get to school differs from day to day. The girls don't have a watch. At this waterfall, the girls know they've made it halfway. Helen and Mariela take a short break. The water has made the sharp stones slippery. Helen's old shoes are much too small for her, and her toes hurt.
We want to play in the water.
The girls enjoy the waterfall. At home on the mountain, there's only just enough rainwater for a quick wash. They can't afford to lose too much time. Otherwise, they'll get to school too late. Then, a lot more water comes down from above than the sisters would like.
We're getting all wet.
Here between the Andes and the Amazon, the weather can change within minutes. Helen and Mariela climb under a rock ledge. The girls don't know how long they'll be stranded here, or if they'll make it to school on time.
I'm ready.
Great.
On the other side of the valley, the rain has passed by. Elmer is ready for his first flight, alone on the steel cable. His father checks all the knots one last time.
We can't stay a father-son team forever. The time has come to let him go.
No estamos muy lejos de esas cosas.
Elmer's father, Porfirio, goes ahead. Elmer is right behind.
Keep going. Go, it's almost over. We're almost there.
By myself.
Soon you'll be flying over the gorge alone.
Done. This trip has buoyed Elmer's courage. He has overcome his fear of the steel cable. His brother, on the other hand, is still too young for this test.
I felt like a bird. I flew. It was really fast. I felt the wind, and I flew with the wind.
Elmer's little brother still rides over the gorge on his father's lap. tied on with only a piece of cloth. From here, the boys have to proceed on foot. The teachers, Angela and Luis, are approaching the most dangerous part of the drive to school. The dirt road leading toward the jungle. It descends nearly 10,000 feet over a distance of only 37 miles. The road, barely wider than the car itself. The driver stays as close as he can to the rock wall. On the other side, the road drops off 2,000 feet. Traffic coming from the opposite direction means mortal danger. In that case, the car must drive in reverse to one of the rare sections of road that are somewhat wider.
Each week, the journey is a real stress on me. It's very dangerous. I do it all for the children, so they can learn something.
Crosses remind the teachers of the constant danger. Several hundred people have gone off the road and plunged into the abyss. Many on this very curve. It drops off thousands of feet into a crater. Waterfalls from above fall directly onto the street. If the ground softens too much, it can give way under the weight of the car and carry those inside to certain death. Carlos drives the minivan very carefully along the cliff edge. Finally, it's over. The drive down one of the most dangerous roads in the world. Angela and Luis have a week of teaching ahead of them. During that time, they'll live at the school. In the heart of the Yungas jungle. There are two very simple bedrooms for the teachers, not to be compared with their apartments in the big city. Before opening the classrooms, they'll take a short rest. It's 7:45 a.m. School begins at 8:30. Helen and Mariela have made it through the jungle. The street in front of them leads to school. 1 more hour on foot. Time is running short. The girls have got to walk faster if they want to be on time. Meanwhile, the temperature has risen to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. The girls trudge wearily along the asphalt. They ought to be wide awake and especially careful, though, as the street has treacherous curves and is heavily traveled. The girls are slowly running out of energy.
We get tired when we walk so far. It's hot. We cool off now, and again in the puddles.
The school is still 2.5 miles away. To the girls, the road feels endless. After a half-mile walk, Elmer and his brother reach their destination. The Puente Armas School, in the middle of the valley. They're a couple of minutes early. The teachers are sleeping and haven't opened the doors yet. But that's no problem. On the contrary.
I like playing a bit before school starts. The soccer field is my favorite place.
Helen and little Mariela are out of energy. But then something truly unusual happens. An acquaintance of their mother spots the two girls on the side of the road. What luck! On the motorbike, they have a chance to get to school on time. To be sure, the streets here are also anything but harmless. But Helen and Mariela are simply happy that they don't have to walk. As long as they get to ride, they don't care about the traffic and the dust clouds. Done. The sisters are almost at their destination. They have rested their feet for a few minutes, a rare luxury. Now, school awaits them. They're happy for class to start, but also to finally see their friends again. These are the two most important things in the sisters' lives. Mariela is in one classroom with Elmer and his brother. Helen is in a second classroom.
Hi, Helen.
The older kids in the school are in her room. In total, 29 children attend the school, ranging in age from 4 to 13.
Line up!
The day begins with morning gymnastics. Time to march.
Hello, children.
Good morning, teacher.
Stand still.
Every Monday at the flag ceremony, the teachers announce the government's latest organizational plans. Today, for example, that the school will soon get a new classroom. In addition, Angela emphasizes how much the president supports the cause of the coca farmers. Then, the most important item on the agenda, the national anthem. The weekly ceremony is meant to teach the children discipline at an early age. Each week, one child is allowed to raise the flag. For the little ones, it's a big honor. Finally, after 45 minutes of standing at attention, class begins. There are 6 classes, but only 2 teachers and 2 rooms. So each room has 3 classes in it, and they all work on different subjects at the same time. In this room, art, Spanish, and nature studies. The first 6 years of school are free and technically compulsory, but especially in rural regions, many children have to work from an early age and thus skip school. Bolivia is the only country in the world in which child labor is legal starting at the age of 10.
What medicinal plants do you know? Think about it.
Amacay. You have to wash your hands after touching it.
What medicinal plant do you know, Daniel?
Coca.
Coca. What does it help with?
Stomach aches.
Then comes the students' favorite part of the day, lunch. The government pays for cookies, bananas, and chilled juice. It's a very special treat for the kids, as hardly any of the families own a refrigerator. For Mariela and Helen, this is often the best meal of the day. At home, they usually only get bread and tea. The family can't afford sweets at all.
I love lunchtime. And afterward, I play soccer with my friends.
The children are especially proud of their soccer jerseys, also a gift from the government. Each child gets an outfit with their name on it. It's usually the children's most expensive and favorite article of clothing. Luis teaches in the second classroom. Today's schedule includes social studies, religion, and math.
What's 4 times 14?
56.
Luis also teaches 3 classes simultaneously. Many of the students have to walk a long way to school, but no one walks as far as Helen and Mariela. And their walk home lasts even longer. That's why it's often hard for 9-year-old Helen to keep up with the other children. At home, she has little time to study for tests, but she works hard for her dream of one day becoming a doctor.
Very often the children are exhausted. Sometimes they fall asleep during class. Many children don't get home until late, especially Helen and Mariela. They usually don't manage to get their homework done.
The girls love their few hours at school. It's often the only time they have to just be children.
The way home is much more difficult. I'm tired from school, and we have to go uphill. At home, I help my mom, take care of my little brother, and I have to do the laundry.
2 p.m. School is over. While the other children wait for the rain shower to pass, Helen and Mariela head off as quickly as possible. They have to be home again before dark, otherwise they might get lost in the jungle. The way home is much more arduous than the way to school. Now, they've got to go uphill. Their one bit of comfort, the leaves of the thick forest shield them from the rain. The climb takes them 3 hours. The boys are also on their way back home. They have to hurry up because there's a special ritual at home tonight on the plantation. But 4-year-old Porfirio is dead tired from school.
It's nice to have a little brother. I like taking care of him. I help him when he falls.
Elmer carries his brother the whole way to the edge of the gorge. The children cannot take the zip line without their father. They're not strong enough to pull themselves to the other side in case of an emergency.
Dad! Dad!
Hi, boys. How are you? How was school?
There are 2 cables strung across the gorge. The cable for the way back starts a little higher up and is thicker. Here, all 3 of them can fly together. But to do so, the father would need to hold on to both of the boys at the same time. Like on the way there, Elmer flies with his own pulley. Little Porfirio's father fastens him to his own body with a piece of cloth. Made it. After one of the world's most dangerous journeys to and from school, Elmer and his little brother are back safe at home.
Hi, Aunt. Hi, Uncle. Hi, Mom.
Tonight, the family will perform the Pachamama ritual. Once a year, the coca farmers from the neighborhood get together and pray to Mother Earth, their supreme deity. They give thanks for their gifts and ask for a good harvest, happiness, and health. The boy's father, Porfirio, builds a kind of altar with various offerings. Helen and Mariela wish simply to make it back home again. It was a long day for the sisters. They have been on their feet for 13 hours. The girls' feet and knees ache. It's 5 p.m. The sun will go down soon. It gets pitch dark quickly in the forest. Then the girls wouldn't be able to see where they're going anymore. They could get lost or fall down the slope. The girls are exhausted. With their last bit of strength, they make it to the summit of the mountain. They are home.
Hi, Mom.
Hi. Relax a little bit.
The day ends with a modest dinner. The girls are tired but happy.
I'm hot. And I'm exhausted. But tomorrow we'll take the same path. Like every day.
The girls always keep their goal in mind, to get an education for a better life, far from the mountain and from poverty. At the Pachamama ritual, 7-year-old Elmer prays for a good and happy future, when he will be an engineer one day. Elmer's father drizzles pure alcohol on the motley collection of offerings. Herbs, llama wool, tinsel, and figurines made of sugar. Later, the family will bury the ashes in the ground. In that way, they send their offerings and their wishes to Mother Earth.
I want my family to be happy.
One day, Elmer would like to build bridges for the inhabitants of the valley, so that no child has to risk its life simply to go to school.